If human consciousness has not been completely discovered, what is there? In 1952, a researcher launched a revolutionary experiment. He began administering psychiatric compounds to his patients. Even the names of the substances inspired fear. But his observations justified it. The patients reported very strange things. A dimensionless space, they said. There is no time there, they said. I met God face to face, they said. Psychiatrists initially thought these were hallucinations, the sick output of the brain, a problem. These first experiments marked the birth of a new science, psychonautics. Consciousness exploration, inner journey, not scientists, but brave people diving into themselves trying to map what was there. But who would create this map? A name would emerge from that chaos. A researcher, a doctor. At the same time as Calhoun's mice, someone who began systematically mapping human consciousness. The researcher's name was Stan Grof. In the mid-1950s, he and a handful of colleagues became obsessed with one question. What is the map of these experiences? The patients reported consistently, but these were not random. There was a system. There was an order. There was a map. Grof made a decision. He would map human consciousness systematically, using the same methodology as Calhoun's mice. But how would he do it? From patient to patient, experiment to experiment, he collected hundreds of reports. He conducted thousands of hours of observation. He took notes. He began searching for patterns. And they found it. They understood that consciousness was a layered map. First layer, personal unconscious, repressed memories, childhood traumas. It was like an open door, everyone went in there. Second layer, perinatal layer, pre-birth experience, being in the womb, the birth process, the struggle for survival. Darkness, pressure, terror. But there is also an exit, light, birth. Third layer, transpersonal layer, no personal boundaries, things humans have experienced throughout history. Gods, mythology, death, rebirth, the universe itself. Was each layer real? Initially, the question was a major debate. What is real? Real according to whom? But they noticed something. The patients were not just seeing random images. When passing through the perinatal layer, they always experienced the same sequence of sensations. When ascending to the transpersonal layer, two patients who had never met reported the same gods, the same symbols, the same entities. It could not be coincidence. This map was real. The map of the consciousness universe was real. And what Grof discovered was not limited to the use of psychedelic medicine alone. These layers could be accessed in other ways too. Meditation, yoga, hypnosis, dreams, even art. Human consciousness carried a universal system. And they were beginning to understand this system, but something else was happening. In parallel, other researchers in other places were asking different questions. How was the human brain changing during this journey? Late in the 1970s, a new technology called neurology emerged. Brain imaging, a device that could map the brain in its living state. Unbelievable! Of course, researchers used it and scanned a patient's brain while sitting in the waiting room in normal condition. Then they administered the drug. They scanned again, so the experiment had begun. Well, what happened in the brain? First thing, the default network went silent. There is a network in our brain that we are not aware of. Inner dialogue, past, future, worries, imagination, ego. It is always working, never resting. That is where anxiety, depression, obsession come from. But during the experience, this network was being shut down. The self went silent. Second thing, different regions of the brain began to communicate. Regions that normally never communicate suddenly synchronized. The entire brain became a synchronized system for the first time. Theta waves increased. The same waves that occur during deep meditation. A change that would take 20 years in meditation happened in minutes. Third thing, neurotransmitters were changing. Serotonin, dopamine, endorphin. The brain's chemistry was being rewritten. And most importantly, the brain was creating new connections. Neuropsychology as a science was beginning here. Observation was becoming structure. The brain was rebuilding itself. Researchers asked a question. Were these temporary or permanent? Patients were affected even months, years after the experiences. The self returned after going silent, but it was not the same as before. It was less dominant. The brain had been recoded. And the next question became even deeper. Well, why was the brain so restricted? Why does the default network, the self, the ego, never rest? Why did the brain lock itself in such a narrow box? Here came the most crucial part. The answer was hidden in evolution. Because the human brain evolved. Predators, hunger, danger, survival determined the entire thought system. The default network is a defense system, a constant worrying system, a threat scanning system, a system of learning from the past and predicting the future. This system kept it alive. But our world changed. Threats decreased, home is warm, safe. But your brain is still operating in survival mode from 50,000 years ago because the brain system didn't change. So the default network is still on, still working, still creating anxiety, still creating stress. And here a great irony emerged. When patients shut down this system during the drug experience, what happened? As you might guess, they felt relief. When the self left, worry left, obsession left, the brain began to work comfortably. So, does this mean is the brain badly designed? Absolutely not. The design is perfect, but it was misaligned in time. It was perfect for 50,000 years ago. Today, it is a massive prison, but researchers discovered something else. The brain could open this prison itself through meditation, through yoga, through art, and yes, through drugs. Consciousness could set itself free. Are you aware of how important a discovery this is? Well, what was psychonautics? How did people start doing this? Grof and his team created a map of the consciousness universe. The map was called holotropic consciousness, consciousness moving toward wholeness. It had layers. Each layer had a specific geography. If consciousness were a mountain, there were higher levels, and there was a peak. Psychonauts climbed this mountain, step by step. First stage, preparation, a safe place, soft light, music. A therapist is there, a guide is there. They call it set and setting. It determines the state of consciousness. The person who will go inside has abandoned everything. No clock, no phone, no outside world, only themselves and their consciousness. Second stage, descent, personal unconscious. Here are repressed memories, childhood, traumas, shames, secrets. The brain opens doors, repressed things come out. Emotions burst, crying, screaming, catharsis. But it is not terrible. It is necessary. The therapist is nearby. Safe. The door closes. The stage is passed. Third stage, perinatal. Here it is dark. Pre-birth experience. The womb. Struggle. Fear. Death. The brain relives the birth process. The entire body trembles. Breathing becomes difficult. Very dark. But there is an exit. There is always an exit. Light. Oxygen. Freedom. This stage can last 30 minutes. It can last 2 hours. Time is completely personal. The duration matters nothing. What matters is the result. Fourth stage, transpersonal universal consciousness. Here it is, open, radiant. No boundaries, no self. This place looked different to every visitor. Some saw God. Some saw angels. Some understood they were the universe. None are the same, but all felt real. Fifth stage, return integration. Here no one speaks. The person slowly comes back, returns to their body, hears the outside world, opens their eyes. First thing, realization. They feel the weight of their body. They feel the boundaries, the feeling of being squeezed again. But it is not painful, like after meditation. New, fresh, open. The therapist does not speak, stays silent. The person stays silent. Hours, many hours can pass. The person who returns is never the same. Here consciousness is realized. Michael was 42 years old, a successful businessman, but anxious. For 30 years, he had been taking sleeping pills. Nothing was spontaneous, everything was planned, controlled. He came to Grof's clinic. On his journey, the first layer, childhood, his father's contracts, expectations. Failure equals disgrace. He understood where it came from. Second layer, birth, struggle, fear, death. But there is an exit, light, freedom. Third layer, eternity. No time, no identity, just existence. The first week, nothing seemed to change. But there was silence inside him. One day at work, he made a sudden decision. Risky. Old Michael would never have done it. He did it. Second month, he quit the sleeping pills. Naturally, no need remained. Sixth month, his therapist asked, "Where is the anxiety?" Michael answered, "It's gone. Life is still difficult, but anxiety doesn't come anymore." The default network had stayed silent. Sarah was 28 years old, an artist, creative, but blocked. For 5 years, she couldn't write anything. Her creativity had stopped. On the second layer of the journey, she was very afraid. Birth, death. But she found the exit. When she ascended to the third layer, she saw everything was present, color, shape, music, God's workshop. She came back. The first week she did not write, but she felt the energy inside. Second week, she was writing as if a channel had opened. 9 months later, she had written a book. It was successful. Her therapist asked, "What changed?" Sarah answered, "Control ended, the self ended, only creativity remained." Hundreds of people left Grof's clinic, anxiety-free, creative, different. When the brain is recoded, the code stays. But the question that needs to be asked here is, what is your difference? What are you waiting for? Is your anxiety controlling you, or are you controlling your anxiety? The answer is simple but difficult. Control is in your hands, still. But the brain doesn't tell you this. The default network deceives you. Anxiety manages you as if it were a natural state of mind. Here is the real result of Grof's 30 years of research. Consciousness can be changed. The brain can be recoded. But how? Grof used psychedelic medicines, but they were just a door. After the door opens, the rest of the journey is yours. Meditation, yoga, art, deep psychology. Life itself is a journey, and every day you must answer the question, what is your difference? If you have anxiety, control it. If you have creativity, listen to it. Because you can live 30 years in anxiety like Michael, or you can choose silence today. You can remain blocked for 5 years like Sarah, or you can choose creativity tomorrow. The door to the brain's prison is open. The choice to exit is yours.